کنفرانس بین المللی در پاریس با حضور رئیس جمهور برگزیده مقاومت، فراخوان به آمریکا، ملل متحد و اتحادیه اروپا. حفاظت بین المللی برای ساکنان اشرف، حذف نام مجاهدین از لیست آمریکا. 20 ژانویه 2012، 30 دی 1390.
Merci. Je passe la parole au général Sheltón, plus haut gradé américain supervisant l'ensemble des forces américaines de 1997 à 2001.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It definitely is a great privilege and pleasure to be with you here in Paris today and to share the dais with such a distinguished group of colleagues. And for the residents of Camp Ashraf, let me say to those of you that may be watching, Salam Alaikum. As has already been said, but I'll say it again, we share your pain and we will be with you throughout. As a general, one of my responsibilities, thank you. As a general, one of my responsibilities included knowing how to use overwhelming and appropriate force to win a war or to win battles. Today, we're here to celebrate, in some respects, winning one battle, that is the battle to make sure we extended the deadline of Camp Ashraf, but we also must be aware that there are other battles to be fought. I would tell you that we won the battle to extend the deadline because of the combined efforts of the European and U.S. campaigns that created an awareness of the plight of the Ashraf residents, along with, and I would say first and foremost in my mind, the brilliant leadership of Mrs. Rajavi, who fought to protect the rights of residents while also simultaneously orchestrating a peaceful solution to the situation in Iraq. Let's give her a big round of applause. And if Ambassador Kobler and the UN enforce the agreement, or if Maliki honored the agreement, then we would not have a reason to be here today. But that is not the case. Today we still must deal with other unfinished business. And that unfinished business includes battles still to be fought. Battles to be fought with Iran, with Iraq, and of course the battle over Camp Liberty. First, Iran. You've heard me quote Sun Tzu, the Chinese strategist and warrior before, who said, if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you need not fear the outcome of 1,000 battles. If you know yourself but not your enemy, then for every victory you will also suffer a defeat. And if you know neither yourself nor your enemy, then you are a fool and you will suffer defeat in every encounter. We know who the enemy is, but when it comes to dealing with Iran, it appears that the United States State Department doesn't have a clue as who the real enemy is. And this could spell disaster, not only in the near term, but for the future as well. As we know, the Obama administration started off with its policy of engagement. Engagement was their goal, but today I think even they have to recognize that it has been a complete and total failure. The first 3 weeks, just looking at the first 3 weeks of this year in 2012, which a little bit less than 3 weeks, I think 3 weeks ends tomorrow, we see Iran boldly announcing that it intended to pursue its underground nuclear facility enriching uranium, indicating more clearly its ominous intent to obtain nuclear weapons. We see Iran in the first 3 weeks sentencing to death a former U.S. Marine. We see them threatening to choke off the Straits of Hormuz, the most strategic passage of oil supply in the world. We see the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, testing missiles and even being so bold as to threaten the United States if they sent carriers back into the international waters of the Persian Gulf. And even today, Iran remains the major supporter of Assad in Syria. That's just in the first 3 weeks. Both the United States and our European allies have been trying to change the behavior of this nation state, so to speak, by threatening or by using the tools of the central bank and its oil. These sanctions against both. These are long overdue, but they are not nearly enough. If you consider the gravity of the situation today, we have got to use some of the other tools in our kit bag of national power. Doing nothing or using the slow-motion, bureaucratic tools that we have used up to this point is almost a total waste of time when it comes to dealing with Iran. It is time to publicly and openly acknowledge our enemy, and the Tehran mullahs are clearly our enemy. They obviously have not been convinced that Iran should behave like a mature nation state. And I think the Arab Spring made them somewhat jittery to start with, and probably even more paranoid because they are now so very uncertain about what the disenchanted, restive young population, the millions of whom poured into the streets in 2009, their young people, will do today. And this brings me really to my key point in this regard, and that is that the United States should address, and indeed must address the fact that we've got to use every tool in our kit bag when we deal with Iran. The Obama administration can, with the stroke of a pen, just one stroke, make Tehran even more jittery. We can send shock waves to the mullahs, and we can certainly energize the Iranian people without having to spend a dime or without having to send one Marine or U.S. soldier into harm's way. Understanding our enemy includes understanding that to Iran it is the enemy within. The mullah's nightmare is to see the United States remove the MEK from its list of terrorist organizations, since the MEK is Tehran's arch enemy. And when you look from through Iran's eyes, and you see Mrs. Rajavi with her 10-point program designed to ensure that the people of Iran enjoy the same rights, freedoms, and privileges that other democratic nations around the world enjoy, you can see why it causes them to be paranoid.